whenever we are discussing about volumes, okay, bind mount can be used. I mean, you can use any drive from your local hard drive, I mean the host machine, to get it associated with your volume, right? So uh, one of the beauty we can use is, let's say I have installed an Nginx server, or else I have a Ubuntu server, made it into a web server. So what should we do? If it is Ubuntu, we need to have Apache 2 to be installed, right? So the web server is made. Now I want to host my own web page, right? So what was the path where my index.html file should be?
Sir, I'm unable to see the screen, sir.
Slash var slash var
Sir,
slash
only
Sir,
unable to
www
see
slash
your
html. Inside that
screen.
particular folder, I should have my HTML file. Am I right?
Pawan, can you hear me?
Okay, fine.
Hello?
Now,
Hello?
if I use the bind mount
Hello,
for the
Pawan?
same, or multiple, see bind mount, you can
Sir,
use the same
Hello?
volume to multiple
sir,
containers. Am I right? That was the beauty with volumes is we can use the
yeah, I
volume
can hear you, Vijay, but
to mount
Pawan, hello?
multiple
I
containers.
think
Am
Pawan
I
sir
right?
is
So
not wearing the
can I
headphones.
host
I'm
my
calling him.
application?
I'm calling him.
Yeah.
Hello?
సార్ యువర్ నాట్ మీరు మాకు వినిపిస్తున్నారు కానీ నేను మాట్లాడేది మీకు వినిపించట్లే అనుకుంటా హెడ్సెట్స్ ఆఫ్ ఉన్నాయంట స్క్రీన్ మేము ఇప్పుడు నేను ఫోన్ మాట్లాడుతున్నా కాబట్టి అక్కడి నుంచి స్క్రీన్ కూడా షేరింగ్ లేదు. ఓకే 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 మేము మాట్లాడుతున్నాం సమీనా, మేము మీకు వినిపించట్లేదు అనుకుంటా ఇందాక. అదే అంటున్నా. ఒకసారి మీ హెడ్సెట్ పెట్టుకోలేదు. ఓకే సార్. ఓకే సార్. Yeah, you can continue, sir. You can hear him.
Yeah, can you guys hear me now? So
Yeah,
actually,
we can
I'm
hear you.
not sharing my screen and I'm not discussing anything topic. It was a question being raised up in here in the class. Okay, people who are available offline, they have raised a question regarding the volume, and I was answering them. One of the method with which we can use the bind mount. Okay, if you remember, okay, let me share my screen and show you what I was saying. So that might be helpful for you also. So if you can see my screen. Okay, let's say what was the major benefit of using bind mount? So whatever maybe the containers we are having, let's say I have got 2 containers. Okay, so out of these 2 containers, I have made them both Nginx, or let's say Apache 2 has been installed. Apache 2 has been installed on both the containers. Okay, right? So both of them have been hosted on different ports, and I'm able to see different web pages for them. Let's say I have an application, I mean whatever maybe the my index.html is there. Okay, that would be displayed on the relevant ports. Am I right? Okay, now I want to host same website, same application on both the containers. Let's say if you are thinking about auto scaling and load balancer, right? While we are discussing about auto scaling, what we are trying to do, we are trying to keep the same application running across multiple virtual machines, right? Similarly, consider that I want to host the same application on both the containers. This is an example, just don't take it. I was saying under what kind of scenarios we might be using. One of the, I'm sure I'm trying to show you that this is how we are going to use the containers, I mean volumes. What was the benefit of using volume at whatever location we want to gain access into that. Okay, one of the example I am showing. So in Apache 2, what was the location where we'll be keeping our index.html? /var/www/html. In this particular directory, I'm supposed to have my web application, and that web application I can host it, right? Am I right? So for both of them, it was same location, but this is a different container. This is a different container. They have got their own files. Okay. Let's say I have created a new volume, bind volume. Okay. Let me name it as app1. Okay. So inside my host machine, I have created a directory by name app1, and inside this app1, I have placed my index.html file. Okay. Now, if I bind this volume, okay, sorry. Okay, now if I bind my volume with this container, what will it show in the on the same path? If I bound it on the same path, what will happen? Whatever site that is hosted, I mean the index.html file that is placed inside this application will be getting hosted on both the containers. Am I right or not? Right. So see, this was one of the locations where I'm saying that we can utilize the bind volume. So now, whenever I want to change my application, let's say, this is just an example. Let's say now I want to change my index.html file into Carvilla that I have showed. Okay. So if I copy those files into this particular directory inside my host, it will be getting hosted on both the containers. I don't have to go inside the container and move all the files and all. Will it be done or not? Yes or no? No? All files are not removed. From where? I am not removing anything. I am not doing anything. I am mounting this application directory without of this particular path and this particular path inside my container. Right? So if at all I place a website in this particular container, the same website will be updated over here. Yes, because it is bind mount. At the same time, since this is also been mounted to the same location, so this will also host the same application. That is what I'm saying. Right? Either ways. So if I want to change from Carvilla to some other coffee based index.html, if I paste it over there, it will be hosted. So data can be transferred one way or other. We can use applications also to do the similar kind of things. Right? One of the beauty with bind mount is that, and you don't have to worry about which location your files are there and so. In general, if you are going ahead with named volumes and all, it should be in the precise location of the volumes inside the Docker file, Docker directory, inside var, inside library, right? Inside Docker, right? So in that particular volumes directory only, you are supposed to create a volume and you should be using that. But with the help of bind mount, you have wherever may be the location inside your host machine, you can utilize that. Yes or no? Right. Okay. Forget about this, and we might be using this similar concept up in here. And today we are going to discuss about Docker networking. Okay. So before going to that, I would like to ask you a question. What is network? In your terms, no issues. I am not asking any textbook definition and all. As per your understanding, what is a network?
Say
Okay.
connectivity where we can communicate to various systems.
Connectivity where you can communicate with the various systems is, one second, let me remove this. Guys, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So one of the best way to precisely keep this network is a channel of communication, or it is a medium with which a communication is established between two persons if it is humans, two persons if it is machines, across machines, right? So how does this network happens in terms of computers? So the connectivity is happened with the help of IP address, right? So basically, if you remember, have we used Docker inspect command?
Yes, Pawan.
Yes. So what does it give to us? It provides you the detailed information about the container, right? Nothing but the process, right? Docker inspect and the container ID or the container name, if you provide it, give detailed information about that particular container, in which you have observed there will be a IP specified over there. By default, the in general is okay. Let me show you. So first, how the Docker network is created. We already know the path, how what was the life cycle that is happening inside the Docker. So basically, we'll be writing some Docker file, execute a build to create an image. If it is image, we'll create an image. If it is directly a Docker file, we would straight away go ahead executing the command Docker run, followed by, if we want interactive terminal, we would. If we want it to happen detached way, -d. If we want to host an application, let's say if it was Nginx server, if we want to host it across or map it across various port, right? We have used it, right? We have defined some port -p followed by, so let's say 3000:80. So what actually we are doing over there? Till these days, knowingly or unknowingly, we are working on the Docker network. Because what we actually doing there is, we are trying to map the containers port over some the port of your host machine. Am I right? Right. This is done with the help of a port name. I mean, network called bridge network. Basically, there are many kinds of bridge networks that are, I mean, many kinds of Docker networks available, but out of which majorly used are bridge network. Second one is host network, and the third one is overlay. In bridge network, this is the basic mechanism that happens that lets us to communicate or establish a connection between the host machine and the container. Let's say let's say this is my host machine, right? Okay. And I have two containers. Let me name them container 1, and the other one is container 2, right? On the host machine, maybe host in the sense EC2 instance or virtual machine, whichever we try to convert it as a Docker hub, or you can consider your own laptop also, right? On which your Docker containers have been created, right? So the host machine and the containers by default has their own IP addresses. So I will show you how it happens. And Docker containers, each and every container that we execute basically has a IP address by default. And this IP address is never the same with that of the host. They are never the same. So like we define CIDR ranges, right? So similarly, the host network will have its own IP address. Let's say 192.168. Okay. in EC2 instance, if you check on with EC2 instance, what would be the private IP that we will have? 172.31. Let's say 1.6 is the IP address of my host machine. Then what would be the IP address of this host machines? I mean the containers. Let's say I am assigning it as 192.168. Let's say I'm using 1.4. Right? Then what would be the IP address for the other container? 192.168. 1.6. So these will be in the same region if we do not define any network by default. Right? In this scenario, I just created some containers on my Docker machine. I haven't defined any network over here. Right? I did not define any network. So this was the default network that is happening inside the Docker. So it will be assigning the same, everything would be in the same CIDR range, so that there is always a connection established between all the containers that are there. Right? And how is that connection happen? Like I said, with the help of a network called bridge network. And bridge network is communicating with the host machine with the help of we call ETH0. ETH0 is the Ethernet port by default being created. Okay, with the help of Ethernet 0, we'll be able to get communicated with the host. This host is having a Ethernet 0, and that Ethernet 0 is nothing but the IP address, public IP address or private IP address that is assigned with this particular host machine. The same thing it was supposed to be with this also. For them, they have a virtual Ethernet. We call it as vEth. And this vEth is nothing but we named as Docker 0. With the help of Docker 0 only, each and every container gets communicated with the ETH0, that is the host IP address. Because of this, we are able to map our containers port with that of the host machine's port. This is the underlying information behind the Docker network that we are using. We have already tried using creating Nginx and port mapping. We are done, right? We have given some other port and mapped it to the 80th port of the host machine. So our application is up and running. Am I right? And this is happened with the help of Docker 0. So your container communicates with the Docker 0 with this Ethernet, and it gets communicated with the host. Let's say I have another container. This container also goes communicate with the Docker 0, and with the Docker 0 only communicates with Ethernet. Clear? Any doubts still here? So this network part we call it as bridge network. Right? Okay. Fine. So is this always preferred to be like this? Let's say some person has access to this particular container. Will he be having access to contain other containers in the Docker? Yes or no? Because they are in the same network. So I can obviously communicate with the other container also. Am I right? That is one point. So if I want to isolate the containers so that there is no understanding between multiple containers. Let's say I have an application. Right? Which has got now my application is having 3 different pages. Each page is hosted on a different container. Let's say one of them is login page. The second one, let me say some products page or logout page. And the third one is some payment gateway. Right? So any person, if he has gain access into login, he will be by default, if I'm not using any medium. Okay. So I will have a default Docker 0, which helps me get communicated with the host machine to host the site, and everything is working fine. But if he has access to login, let's say there is a hacker and he has access to login page, right? That means he indirectly has access to my payment also. So my system gets compromised because of this. I don't want this to happen. But throughout the system, there will be only one Docker 0 virtual Ethernet. Right? Then how should I go ahead with this? That was a problem. Right? For that, what we do, we create something called customized bridge network. Customized bridge network. So with the help of customized bridge network, what we do, we can create virtual Ethernet for that particular network alone and get communicated with the host machine. The same commitment happens back again. Right? My host. Now what happens here is I am trying to define some different partition. So for the regular login and logout, there is no necessity for me to go beyond and define different networks for each and everything. For all of the remaining sources, I will go ahead with the default one, Docker 0. With the help of Docker 0, it will get communicated with Ethernet 0, which is the default port. So this communication and this communication, both of them with the help of Docker 0, gets communicated with my host. Now I want to define a new network. Okay, new bridge network. We'll see the command how to create it. So whatever network we create by default, it would be a bridge network only, but user defined. That is nothing but a customized bridge network. So let's say I have created a network by name demo. Right? So now this payment gateway, with the help of a demo network, it will try to get communicated with that. Now, if anyone has access to this, they have access to this login page. Will he have access to payment? There is no way he can gain access into my network. One more thing, the IP addresses that are being defined over here and over here does not overlap with this. Since it is a new network, it will have a different IP address assigned over here. So whatever may be the containers that run on this particular network, with this network, will have the similar IP ports, but not that of the one which is having with Docker. Clear? This is how network happens. The second kind of network is host network. So what we actually do is, instead of it getting mapped with a different IP address, we directly map it with the IP address of the host machine while creating the container itself. Right? While creating the container itself, the container is being assigned with the host IP address. So what happens over here? Is it a good method? Frankly speaking, it is never a best practice, because your host machine is linked with the container directly. So your system will be compromised very easy. And it is never allowed. But we have a provision to do that also. Let's say I have hosted an application Nginx on my container. If I get it connected to the host network, right? I will be able to see whenever I execute the main port, I will be able to see the host IP address and I will have the access to the host machine. So it is not a best practice to utilize it, but it is still there. So initially they went on with the host. Later they felt it is not good. Then they started working with the bridge network. Other one is overlay network. Overlay network basically let's say this is a different virtual. This is a different host and this is a different host, right? If we want to establish a connection between containers between this network and this network, I mean different host, multiple host machines, we use overlay network, and we will not be discussing about that. And this concept will be covered while you are working with Kubernetes. So as of now, if you are working with Docker, we majorly work with either host or bridge network. Major cases was bridge as well as customized bridge, right? So some of you have already got errors. If you do remember, while you have already executing one container and try to create another container, and so it has give you some warning relevant to bridge connectivity. Do you remember? Some people have faced this issue. So I suggested to remove the existing running containers and then go ahead. You got the same issue, right? So the error was because there is already a network that is happening over there, which is utilizing that particular port, and you are not supposed to do that again. Am I right? Fine. So let us go ahead. Check on with the hands on. Yes or no? Have you understood this? Does anyone
Yes,
have any
Pawan.
doubts relevant to this?
No, clear.
Others? Spandana,
sir.
Shravan, Ujjwala?
Yes, got it, sir.
Fine. Okay, then we will see in hands on. Just give me a second. Let me create my server. I don't know whether submit. No, I don't have a server. Okay, let me quickly create it now. We go manage Sudo Micro. And we are 1, 2, 3. So let me copy my public IP address. Okay. Now logged into my server. Docker not found. Yes. Right now I do not have any. Okay. Docker daemon should be kept running. nctl start Docker. Docker. Okay. Now let me execute Docker command. Docker ps. I do not have any containers. Docker images. I do not have any images right now. Okay, let me run a Nginx server and see. Docker run -it. Okay, let me use detached mode. Okay, let me name it as web app Nginx colon latest. Right? Shall I define some port also? -p. Let's say 85:80. Clear? So it is giving response wrong web app. Okay. Okay. I need to define a name. --, name web app. Clear? Docker ps. I have my container up and running, and 85 port is redirecting to port number 80. So I have already copied my public IP address. Column 85 should reflect Nginx page. Right? This is what is actually happening, and my public IP address is 34.224.64.146 is the IP address of my server. 1 second, please. So this is the IP address. So what is the public private IP address of my server? 172.31.25.148. Right? Now let me check on with the IP address of the container. Docker. Okay. Was it fine? Docker inspect. What is the name of the container? Web app. See, it is defining some IP address which is 172.17.02. So if I create another container, okay, let me create a new container. Docker run -d. Let us host the same thing over there also, right? -d -p. What was the port number now? Let's say 86 80 -name web app 1 Nginx latest. Right? Fine. Now I want to change this Docker. So the same thing, 86 port, right? Port number 86 is reflecting the same. Now I want to change this page. How should I do? I want to change the page of 86, the present container web app 1. How should I do? -D helps me to keep the container running behind the screen background. -IT is to interactively go into the container. But right now I have already defined it to run in a detached mode. Right? So once it is in running, will I be able to execute run command again? Then what should I use? Stop. I don't want to stop my container. I want to keep it running. At the same time, I want to log in into the container. V Docker exec -IT. I want to execute /bin/bash. So, okay, no, it is not executing. Right. I need to define the container name. What was the container name? Web app 1. Now I have logged into web app 1. ls, I have got the directories cd var ls cd. Where is the www? So it is Nginx, right? Where does the Nginx information stay? One proc server Docker library. Sorry, it should be in user. cd space dot dot. For Nginx, the file would be in user. User. Let's again share.
Nginx.
Inside this, we have directory HTML should be there, right?
Nginx.
Nginx,
Host
right?
Nginx. HTML.
Okay, cd Nginx. ls. Inside here, I have HTML. ls index.html. vi index.html. Okay, vi is not available. So let me write. Okay, use echo. -h1 greater than index.html. Can I do this? Right now, let me go refresh my container. My content is updated. Yes or no? Right. So I have two containers with two different applications. Now I am still in the container. I want to come out of it. Exit. Just exit. You come out of the container. Right. Docker inspect web app. So for web app, the IP address is 172.17.02. Right. Next. Docker inspect web app 1. See, the IP address is 03. So they are in the same CIDR range. Right. How are they been connected? We have to identify all these things, we have a command called Docker network. So these are all the various commands associated with it. One is to connect, one is to create, one is to disconnect. So Docker network create, if I use, I will be able to create a new command, new network, right? If I use inspect detailed information about that, ls to list out the list of networks. So let us see docker network ls. See, right now I have 3 different containers that are available, I mean networks that are available inside my system, in which I have bridge network, I have host network, and the other one is none. None is to keep them isolated. If you use none, what happens? It will be in detached state, but you will not be able to get connected to that because there is no network. Am I right? Fine. So now, if you check on with the previous inspects that I have done for both of them, right? Web app 1. So what is the network that it is being utilized by this bridge? We know that. And how do we know in this? See, network settings. We are getting connected with the bridge network. So where is the IP address? It has been shown. Okay, in this, see the connectivity inside networks, it has been associated with this. Right? The kind of network it is using is bridge network. Okay. Now, let's say, let us have another container also up and running, provided I want it under a new network. Okay. Before that, how to create a new network? Docker network create, let's say my network. I have created a network. Now let me check Docker network ls. See, I have my network also been defined, and this my network is a bridge network only, customized network, right? Now I want to create a new container, and that container is supposed to be inside the my network. How do we do that? Docker run -d. Let's say execute the same thing. -p. What was the port I want? Now let me use port number 90. -name. Let's say payment. Okay, now the container name is payment. I want the payment in a different network, like I said, right? So I want this to be in a specified network, right? So I need to use -- network flag. So which network I want? My - network. Followed by image name, Nginx latest. Clear? Understood this command? Are you able to understand it or not? So now what am I doing? I'm trying to create a new Nginx container, but I'm keeping this Nginx container in a different network apart from that of the Docker previous one, which is default. Now let me execute it. So it has created a container, Docker PS. Now I have got 3 containers up and running. Okay. Out of this, the latest one is port number 90, which is redirected to 80. And this particular container name is payment. Let me inspect this. Docker inspect payment. See here, it is associated. See, it is also a bridge network. So the network name is my network. My network, and see the IP address 172.18.0 and 2. Previously it was no. I will show you. It is 172.17.03. Now the IP address is totally changed to 172.18.02. So both of them are in a different network. You understand it? This is how we create a network and how we attach the resources to that particular network. Let's say I have a container which is running. If I keep it in stop state and I want to get it executed with this network, what we can do? Disconnect over there and get connected to the new network. Clear? This is the concept behind the networking. Now you understood what are the major areas where, if at all we want it to create a different network for ourselves, then we create it with the help of, let's say, now I want to host it directly to my, okay, let me create one more container. Docker run -d -p port number 100, right? -name. I want to name it as demo. That is what I'm doing. Host demo. I know, right? Now I have given the name as host name. But if I want to define it under the host, -network equal to host, followed by Nginx latest. If I execute this, this should get mapped with the host directly, but not with the internal containers. But before running it, let me check on with my public IP address. I'm not giving any port, so it is not reachable. We have defined it with port number 100. Okay, no matter, let it be like that only. Right now, I'm executing this particular command. Warning: published ports are discarded when using host network mode. So whatever ports we have published, see, do you remember -p is meant to publish the ports? So we are actually publishing one port and getting it mapped to the port of your host. Now it is saying ports are discarded when host network mode is activated. Now Docker inspect host demo. Do we have any IP address defined up in here? Our network is host. So let me see what happens to my web page. I'm able to see I'm not using any port. If I refresh, I'm still having the Nginx server. That means it is directly getting mapped with the IP address of your local machine, host machine. Clear? Any other doubts? Yes. So if you want to see, that is what, again, first you need to disconnect from the existing network. So for that we have Docker disconnect, Docker network. We have command disconnect. You need to disconnect it, again run it with the network name is equal to host. Yes. Okay, let us try that. Network disconnect host demo. Requires exactly 2 arguments. We have done something. Network container. Yes, this is what it's a network container. So since it is running, it is asking me -f. Not working. So we are already Docker work ls. Okay, let me try it with Docker network.
I think we also need to
Yes,
include
no,
network name as
yes, both we should. Host name. Error container cannot be disconnected from the host network or connected to the host network. So we do not have the option to disconnect from the host network. Okay, so the same thing we can do it with others. Let's say we have from the bridge. Let me disconnect web app. It has been disconnected, but the host, since it is binary, it is not possible. Docker ps. Now host demo, right? Let me remove it. Docker rm-f host demo. But actually it was not the right method. Docker yes, I have 3. Now I want to disconnect. We have already disconnected web app, right? Now let me add web app to the host network, right? But I want to change web app again so that we can see whether, okay, we have two different things, right? Okay. Docker. So payment is already connected with no, demo, right? It has been disconnected. Docker run hyphen network. Let it be in detached mode. Network equal to host. Followed by what was the container name? Web app. Access denied. It was trying to think it as a different thing. The container is already running. No, no, no. One second. Docker inspect web app. So right now web app is not having any IP address since it has not been associated with any other network. Okay. One second. So we need to stop the container and then execute it. Let's try. Docker stop web app. Docker run -d
hyphen network equal to host web app. Stop state, so I want to get connected to network. No. Okay, we need to use connect. Okay. Network connect. So now what are we supposed to get connected? Web app. Okay. Let me name the connect to host based web app. Container cannot be disconnected from the host network or connected to the host network. Okay, let me get it connected to bridge network. My network and web app. See, Docker inspect web app. Now it should be. No, I haven't started the container. Docker start web app. Right now, Docker inspect web app. See, it has been 172.18.0.3, which is our network. Right. This is how we do it, but it is not permitted. Once we have already mapped this IP address to host, it is not permitting us to delete it or remove it. Right. So never go with host network. Understood? Any doubts? Samajhwana? With this, people online, any doubts?
No, sir.
No.
So this is the end of the Docker, and let me go and show you there is a project already defined. I want everyone to complete the task also once again. There is a directory by name assignment. So it has a set of files. Okay. In FE app, in this particular assignment, you do not have a Docker file. Okay. You have instructions being defined over there, how to create your Docker file, and you are supposed to do this and make sure your application gets running inside your container. Right? It has some errors also. You need to rectify them and try to create the Docker file out of this. Yeah. Someone try to speak out, please go ahead.
It's nothing, sir.
Okay then. So it is already available inside the Docker GitHub repository that we have given inside assignments. So you have got requirements.txt, which contains what are all the applications that are required for this application to execute. So these are the things that you need to install. So they were already defined inside requirements, and you have the application Python code which is readily available over there, and templates that are associated in which you have the index.html file. So every information relevant to that particular assignment are there readily. All you have to do is to create your Docker file with the information that is available with you. Understood? With this, we end the session up in here. Any other doubts?
No, sir. No.
Okay then. Thank you very much for joining the session. Have a great day. For the people who are attending AWS, tomorrow we will have a admin class. Today you do not have admin class. We'll have a admin class tomorrow. If
Yes.
possible, okay. Okay, I'll just update you in the WhatsApp group. Okay,
Sure. Thank you.
thank you.